There's a reason why you feel stuck in life, why you keep repeating the same mistakes, why you sabotage your relationships, your goals, your peace. It's not bad luck. It's not fate. And it's not because you're weak. It's because there's a part of you that you've been avoiding your entire life. A part that holds everything you were told not to be. The truth is, you've been at war with yourself, and you didn't even know it. Carl Jung called this part the shadow. It's the hidden side of your personality. Everything you've repressed, denied, or disowned because you thought it wasn't acceptable. When you were a child, you were whole. You cried when something hurt. You screamed when you were angry. You asked for what you wanted. But little by little, you were trained to be someone else. You were told to behave, to quiet down, to be nice, to not make anyone uncomfortable. So you adapted. You created a version of yourself that would be loved and approved. And everything else, your anger, your jealousy, your lust, your ambition, even your confidence, got pushed into the dark. You became what Jung called the persona, the mask you wear to survive in society. But that mask doesn't erase what's behind it. It only hides it. And the more you ignore what's in your shadow, the more power it gains over you. Your shadow doesn't stay quiet forever. It shows up when you're triggered. It shows up when you overreact, when you sabotage something good, when you feel envy or shame or rage you can't explain. It shows up when you judge others, because often, what you judge in others is exactly what you've rejected in yourself. And it shows up in the patterns you can't break, no matter how hard you try. You think you're making choices, but when the shadow is unconscious, it's making them for you. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That's not just philosophy. That's your reality. The things you keep calling bad luck, or destiny, or karma, may actually be parts of you trying to get your attention. And here's the hard part. The shadow isn't just made of negative traits. Sometimes you've rejected your own power, your voice, your sensuality, your truth, because maybe someone once told you that you were too loud, too bold, too selfish, too different. And you believed it. So you made yourself small. You hid. You became acceptable at the cost of being authentic. But what you hide controls you. What you face transforms you. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your key to becoming whole. You don't need to destroy it. You need to integrate it. The anger you've been suppressing might actually be your inner boundary screaming to be heard. The envy you feel could be a sign of the unlived life inside you. The part of you that wants more, that dreams bigger, that craves intensity. Maybe that's not wrong. Maybe that's exactly who you are when you stop apologizing for it. You've been taught to fear your darkness. But the darkness is where the real you has been waiting. Your shadow isn't a monster. It's a mirror. And if you're brave enough to look into it, you'll see the parts of yourself you lost along the way. You'll see the parts that were never broken, only buried. The goal isn't perfection. It's wholeness. You are not here to be good. You're here to be real. You don't need another self-help tip. You need a reckoning. A moment of truth where you stop pretending, stop pleasing, stop hiding. Because the cost of repressing your shadow is your life. Your full life. And the moment you begin to face it is the moment everything changes. The journey begins with one question. What part of myself have I been afraid to look at? That's where your power lives. That's where your truth begins. Not in the light, but in the dark. Most people never meet their true selves. They meet their conditioning, the version of themselves shaped by fear, shame, and survival. From the moment you're born, you begin learning who you're allowed to be, not through truth, but through punishment and reward. You learn that some emotions are safe to express and others will cost you love. You learn that certain desires make you bad, certain thoughts make you dangerous, and certain truths make you unworthy. So you split. You divide yourself between what you're supposed to be and what you actually are. This split is where the shadow is born. It doesn't start with something dramatic. It starts in the small, everyday ways you were taught to betray yourself. When you cried and were told to stop being dramatic. When you got angry and were sent to your room. When you asked for too much attention and were made to feel selfish. When your sensitivity was mocked. When your confidence made someone uncomfortable. You learned that some parts of you would be punished, and so you buried them. This process is invisible, but powerful. You don't even realize it's happening. All you know is that it feels safer to be quiet than to speak. Easier to agree than to upset someone. Smarter to shrink than to be seen. You start to shape your personality around what's acceptable. You become the good child, the helpful friend, the humble student, the obedient partner. You adapt to survive. And every time you abandon a part of yourself to be accepted, your shadow grows. The shadow is not a flaw in you. It's the result of a survival strategy. It's how your nervous system protected you from rejection, judgment, and pain. But what protected you then is now holding you back. The mask that once kept you safe is now keeping you stuck. Because the shadow doesn't disappear. It leaks. It leaks through projection, when you criticize others for traits you haven't owned in yourself. It leaks through sabotage, when you unconsciously destroy what you want because a part of you still believes you don't deserve it. It leaks through attraction, when you're drawn to people who embody what you've repressed. It leaks through triggers, the moments when your reaction is far bigger than the situation. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're not too much. You're responding to years of unprocessed emotion that has been sitting just beneath the surface, waiting to be seen. The more you deny your shadow, the more control it has. And it doesn't care about your plans, your goals, or your image. It only cares about being heard. That's why healing doesn't begin with fixing yourself. It begins with facing yourself. You can't love yourself if you only love the parts you've deemed acceptable. That's not love. That's control. Real love, healing love, is born in the willingness to say, even this is part of me. Even this deserves compassion. The shadow doesn't make you dangerous. It makes you human. The jealousy, the insecurity, the rage, the guilt, the grief, these are not signs of failure. They're invitations to wholeness. They're the language of a part of you that's been locked away for too long. You might think you're hiding your shadow, but your life is showing it anyway. In the things you fear, in the roles you play, in the emotions you numb, in the dreams you silence. You're not as invisible as you think. Your soul is trying to speak, but it's speaking through everything you're trying to avoid. The world doesn't need more people pretending to be perfect. It needs people who are honest, who are whole, who are brave enough to face themselves so they can truly show up for others. When you begin this work, you will feel resistance. That's normal. The shadow doesn't come out in the light all at once. It reveals itself slowly, piece by piece. Sometimes through a breakdown, sometimes through a heartbreak, sometimes through an irrational fear or an overwhelming urge you can't explain. These moments are not failures. They are breakthroughs in disguise. This is not easy work. It asks you to revisit pain, to question what you've always believed, to stop performing and start revealing. But the reward is worth it. Because on the other side of the shadow is freedom, not the freedom to be who you think you should be, but the freedom to be who you truly are. You don't heal by escaping your darkness. You heal by bringing light into it. Not to erase it, but to understand it. To say, I see you. You belong here too. That's how the shadow loses power, not by being defeated, but by being embraced. This is what Jung meant when he said that wholeness is the goal, not perfection. You are not meant to be one-sided. You are not meant to be only light or only dark. You are meant to be both, in balance, in truth, in power. So the next time you feel triggered, judged, ashamed, or out of control, ask yourself, what part of me have I been trying to silence? What am I afraid will be exposed? What am I ready to reclaim? Because the journey of healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget. Most people think the shadow only lives inside them, but it's everywhere. You don't just carry your own shadow. You swim in a world built on repressed darkness. From religion to politics to pop culture, society itself has a collective shadow. And just like in the individual, what the collective denies, it projects. Projection is the most common way the shadow expresses itself. Jung believed that what you can't accept in yourself, you'll see and attack in others. You project your shadow onto your partner, your friends, your enemies, your parents, strangers on the internet. You point fingers. You judge. You shame. All the while, you're really speaking to a part of yourself you've buried. When you hate someone for being arrogant, it may be because you were taught to hide your own confidence. When you resent someone for being selfish, it may be because you were conditioned to give until you're empty. When you're triggered by someone's sexuality, it may be because you've repressed your own. That's how the shadow works. It hides behind your judgments, your biases, your disgust, your moral outrage. You think you're seeing someone else's flaw, but you're looking in a mirror. That's why shadow work is so uncomfortable. It requires radical honesty, not about who others are, but about who you are. It asks you to turn inward when everything in you wants to blame outward. It asks you to own what you've spent a lifetime denying. And here's the truth. Everyone is projecting. All the time. The question is not whether you're projecting. The question is whether you're willing to notice it. Every person who triggers you is a teacher. Every judgment you make is a clue. Every story you tell about someone else is a chance to uncover a hidden part of yourself. But most people miss these opportunities because it's easier to stay blind. It's easier to believe they are the problem, that the world is full of idiots, narcissists, liars, cheaters, monsters, that you are the victim and everyone else is toxic. But blaming keeps you powerless. Projection keeps you stuck. As long as your shadow remains in the dark, it will rule your life. And you'll keep recreating the same patterns, not because you're cursed, but because your unconscious is trying to get your attention. This is where the deeper work begins. Shadow integration is the process of consciously reclaiming the parts of you that were disowned. It's not about fixing or getting rid of anything. It's about seeing what's been hidden and allowing it to exist without shame. It's about moving from reaction to awareness, from avoidance to acceptance. This is a spiritual process, not in the sense of fantasy or escape, but in the sense of truth. Because nothing is more spiritual than becoming whole. And wholeness requires you to embrace your contradictions. You can be kind and still have rage. You can be loving and still feel jealousy. You can be spiritual and still wrestle with ego. You are not here to be one-dimensional. You are here to be real. Jung didn't believe in perfection. He believed in balance. That the psyche has a natural desire to heal itself through integration, to bring the unconscious into consciousness. And when you begin this process, you start noticing what you used to deny. You pause before reacting. You sit with discomfort instead of fleeing it. You trace your triggers back to their roots. You stop projecting and start reflecting. Shadow work doesn't make you a better person. It makes you a whole person. And that's far more powerful. You stop needing others to validate you, because you validate yourself. You stop seeking enemies, because you stop rejecting yourself. You stop performing, because you remember who you are without the mask. And something incredible happens. You become compassionate, not just to others, but to yourself. Because you've seen the worst in you, and you've loved it anyway. This is not weakness. This is inner strength. The strength to hold complexity, to live in paradox, to be both shadow and light, not in conflict, but in harmony. The world teaches you to split, to pick a side, to choose between being strong or soft, humble or confident, generous or self-protective. But Jung teaches you to integrate, to hold the tension between opposites until something new emerges, something more real than either extreme. This is the alchemy of the soul. You take what is base, raw, painful, and you transform it into gold. But only if you're willing to feel it, to own it, to stop pretending. You cannot heal what you refuse to see. You cannot become whole by cutting yourself in half. And you cannot evolve by staying safe. Shadow work is dangerous to your ego, to your illusions, to your comfort zone. But it is the only path to freedom. Because the shadow isn't just what you feared. It's what you've forgotten. Your fire, your truth, your wildness, your voice, your depth, your power. And once you reclaim it, you stop living a life of reaction and start living a life of choice. So what happens when you finally face your shadow? When you stop running, stop projecting, stop pretending, you begin to wake up. You begin to see clearly, not just the world around you, but your place in it. You realize that the parts of you spent your whole life rejecting were never your enemy. They were your teachers, your protectors, your wounded children, your lost voices. They acted out because they were unseen. They lashed out because they were unloved. They sabotaged your life because they were begging for your attention. And now, for the first time, you're listening. This is where healing begins. Not with control, not with perfection, not with spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity, but with presence, with honesty, with the courage to sit with your own pain and not run from it. You start to understand your triggers. You stop blaming others for your suffering. You stop performing for love and start embodying it. You stop chasing approval and start reclaiming your self-worth. Because now, you're not fragmented. You're not divided between who you are and who you're pretending to be. You are whole. Jung believed that wholeness is the true purpose of life, not happiness, not success, not morality. Wholeness. to be fully conscious of both your light and your dark, and to walk the razor's edge between them with integrity. This is not the same as being perfect. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about embracing your flaws, your wounds, your contradictions. It's about realizing that every part of you, even the parts you were taught to hate, has a role in your becoming. Your rage? It may be the fire that protects your boundaries. Your envy? It may be the compass pointing to what you truly desire. Your insecurity? It may be the doorway to your deepest healing. Your desire for power? It may be the call to finally own your voice. Your shame? It may be the scar of someone else's fear, not your fault, but your responsibility to transform. You're not broken. You're layered. And each layer, when brought into awareness, becomes part of your medicine. You stop seeing healing as a destination. You stop thinking you'll arrive when you're finally fixed. You realize that healing is a spiral, always deepening, always unfolding, always asking more of you. Not to punish you, but to free you. Every time you face a part of your shadow, you reclaim your power. Every time you tell the truth, you release the need for the mask. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, you become more real. And that realness is magnetic, alive, unstoppable. You don't have to fear your darkness anymore. You don't have to hide it. You can hold it, speak it, learn from it. Let it move through you. Let it break you open, not down. Because what breaks down is not your soul, it's your false identity. And what rises in its place is your truth. This is what integration feels like. You begin to see that others are also carrying their shadows, that their cruelty is often a mask for fear, that their arrogance is protection, that their judgment is projection. And instead of reacting, you start relating from a place of depth, of compassion, of boundaries without blame. You no longer need to control the world to feel safe. You create safety within yourself by no longer abandoning who you are. This is real maturity, not performance, not spiritual ego, but the ability to hold complexity, to own your impact, to see yourself clearly, and still love what you see. The shadow isn't just your darkness. It's your hidden brilliance, your unfelt potential, your raw life force. When you reclaim it, you become fully alive. And that's terrifying, because it means giving up the excuses, the victim stories, the need to be small so others don't feel threatened, the old belief that being powerful makes you dangerous, that being free makes you selfish, that being seen makes you unsafe. But ask yourself, who benefits when you stay small? Who profits when you live in fear? Who gains when you reject your power? Not you. When you integrate your shadow, you become sovereign. You no longer depend on external validation to feel worthy. You no longer mold yourself to fit in. You no longer need to be good to be enough. You realize that the most dangerous thing in this world is not your darkness, it's your light, when you own it fully. The most magnetic people are not perfect. They are integrated. They've met themselves in the dark. They've walked through their rage, their shame, their pain, their desire, and emerged whole. Not sanitized, not holy, just real. And that's what this world needs. Not more gurus, not more rules, not more masks, but more humans, fully awake, fully alive, fully whole. So ask yourself, what part of me have I been afraid to meet? What truth have I silenced to be accepted? What would happen if I stopped hiding? You might feel fear. Good. That means you're close to something real. Step into it. Let it shake you. Let it undo you. Let it strip away everything false. What's left is the most powerful thing you'll ever know, the truth of who you are. Not your persona, not your trauma, not your conditioning, but yourself. The one Jung said lives beyond the shadow. The self is not light or dark. It is the whole, the union of opposites, the center of your being, the still point that watches everything rise and fall without losing itself. You don't find the self by bypassing the shadow. You find it by walking through it. So if you've been avoiding your darkness, stop. Turn around. Walk straight into it. That's where your soul has been waiting. In the dark. In the silence. In the place you swore you'd never go. Go there. And come back whole.